Welcome to POSTCAST tonight. The Utah Jazz lose a real crusher. I mean, there's just no other way to say this one. And I think as fans you worry about it. It doesn't often happen that you have losses that have long-term ramifications. But if we're going to have a loss that has long-term ramifications, this could be one. I mean, that's how much of this one is a crusher. The Jazz get outscored 43-20 in the final 13 minutes of this game and are unable to hold off, of all people, Devin Harris and the Atlanta Hawks. And the Jazz had them on the ropes. They were up 15, Ron, and then they turned the ball over 3 times in a row, and that's the story of the game. They self-inflicted the wound, and then Atlanta just kept ripping it open.
Just kept applying defensive pressure, and as you mentioned, the 3 turnovers. But after those turnovers, they just couldn't seem to get back and protect the basket. They started getting some fast break points. They ended up with 21 fast break points after really struggling, in transition there in the first half. A lot of those came off the 7 turnovers that they had there in that third period. But the fact that they just couldn't regain the momentum that they had was because of poor execution and poor play by the bench, the group that Tyrone Corbin had on the floor.
The Jazz also got just absolutely nothing off the bench tonight in any way, and then it meant that the Jazz rolled Foy, Millsap, and Jefferson out for 40 minutes against a really athletic team. It did look like they ran out of gas, but I don't know what Ty's supposed to do. Favors was as out of his world as I've ever seen him. I don't know if the pressure of playing at home, the frustration not getting any shots in his first 10-minute stint, but he did stuff I've never seen him do. Cantor is still not right out of that ankle, and Alec Burks took a step back, which young guys do. I mean, these aren't earth-shattering things. This is what happens when you play young guys, but he got nothing out of them and had to go back to Millsap, Jefferson, and Favors very early tonight, and they may have run out of gas because they got outscored in the final 5 minutes, 17-6.
Well, you could be right about that, but I didn't think that Atlanta was doing anything special that Favors would take himself out of this. I mean, he just totally didn't have concentration.
Well,
tonight. It just wasn't
something
focused
was way
there at all.
off kilter for him. I mean, I've never seen it before, Ron. It almost looked like he took shots because he thought it was his turn.
And maybe this is a carryover from in the Dallas game. He got frustrated there and actually put Dirk on the floor. I mean,
Derek's very frustrated about his minutes. He has not said anything publicly, but he wants to play more. He wants to do more, and the minutes aren't there. And that came, we saw it on the floor tonight.
Well, eventually, the harder he works, his game will come around, I think, to the point where he will demand minutes, whether it's this year or next year.
Right.
But he still needs to work on his game.
And his game, as he gets frustrated, his game is getting less good, and his minutes are in turn going down.
And I don't think he understands that.
Right. Yeah. That's the catch-22 here.
Yeah.
Two specifics that happened in this game. One thing the Jazz have usually been able to do is really kind of answer things down the stretch. They didn't do their usual thing down the stretch tonight. Largely defensively, Atlanta ends up shooting 22 of 39 in the second half. But what happened that one thing this team's done pretty well all year is be able to go down late in the games, get it to Al, get the ball, make some plays. Those didn't come about tonight.
Well, Al did his thing, that's for sure. And one thing, a couple of times anyway, it did happen where the Jazz were, just as you mentioned, didn't swing the basketball around the perimeter to the weak side of the floor. It stayed on the one side. And you saw Al Jefferson looking up at the shot clock, and all of a sudden, oh, man, there's only 2 seconds on the clock. Now I got to get rid of the basketball, and they were not good shots. Paul, a couple of times, especially the last time, driving to the basket, did not get a foul, got his shot blocked. Those are possessions there that I think that the Jazz would like to have back, especially Paul, because he should have been getting to the free throw line in a situation like that.
We go back to it, Ron, go back to our halftime interview with Sidney Lowe, and he talked about, he was not pleased. They were up by 4, but he was not pleased because there were 4 or 5 possessions late where they had specific things they were supposed to get into. They didn't get into those specific plays. We also saw 2 occasions tonight where just nobody stopped the ball where they went up the floor. Yeah. If you're going to win on the road consistently, and the Jazz have the longest streak of any team in the NBA without 2 wins in a row on the road, you cannot have those mental lapses. They come back to get you. And even when you're up by, what happened tonight, I think the Jazz got up by 8, they got up by 15. And maybe they just didn't really, it's all right. We're up by 8, up by 15. They come back to get you on the road.
We can give Atlanta a lot of credit for doing what they did tonight. But you cannot excuse the Jazz for not playing defense. I mean, you're going to have bad shooting nights. You're going to have times when you just can't put the ball in the basket, that type of thing. But getting back on defense and working hard on defense, you can't. There's no excuse for that.
Al Jefferson, great box score, 23 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists. Paul, great box score, 20 points, 13 rebounds, 5 assists tonight. A lot of things done well. Foy was on fire at 25. He got 18 of those in the first half, 15 of the first quarter. So, a lot of good box scores along the way, but just not the overall, I guess, collective effort on the defensive end or the smart plays along the way to win their second straight road game. The Jazz, who had won 4 of 5 coming in, lose tonight, 103-95 Atlanta. Devin Harris, when he put that little 3 up that he always does, his little thing, I thought he pointed some, he put a little extra twist on it today.
Well,
give the guy credit,
he had a good
man.
game. He had a very good game, and again, he's a very good player. 3 for 3 there in the fourth quarter for 12 points, and he had 4 rebounds there as well.
One thing we actually should point, Larry Drew made a really nice coaching move in this game. He couldn't figure out how to keep Josh Smith on the floor as long as he's being guarded by he was guarding Paul Millsap because Paul was killing him. And he slid him to the 3, moved Ivan Johnson in to play the 4, and that made Gordon Hayward had to deal with Josh Smith on the other side. And I'd have to look at the numbers and see how it played out, but it felt as though that gave Atlanta, for the first time all night, an offensive edge in their ability to go to Josh Smith on Gordon Hayward.
Yeah, and you see they did go to him. Josh tried to post him up, but I thought Gordon did a fairly good job. Josh Smith in that fourth quarter, he was 2 for 3, only had 3 shots anyway, but the jumper that he made, I think, was a dagger, and I think I'd take that shot from him any day. He just ended up
the real thing Josh
shot.
Smith is he had 3 assists in that fourth quarter, and of all things, he leads this team in late game assists, and that showed again tonight. The Jazz lose it. We'll be in Detroit tomorrow, 103-95. Jazz fall to the Hawks as the Jazz slip to 19-19 on the season. On behalf of Ron, I'm David. Have a good night.